Welcome to News Laundry Chhota Hafta. For the full episode, subscribe because it is behind the paywall and only subscribers get access to uncut, complete content. News Laundry Hafta is our weekly wrap of all that made the news, all that didn't, and all that should have and all that shouldn't have. We agree, we disagree, we critique, and occasionally we beat each other up. But it's all good fun. Subscribe.
This is a News Laundry podcast and you're listening to NL Hafta.
अंग्रेज अपना लगान और न्यूज़ लॉन्ड्री अपना हफ्ता कभी नहीं छोड़ते. Welcome to another episode of NL Hafta. Today we are joined by two guests. Let me just introduce our panel to you first before we get into the headlines. Joining us from Mumbai is the co-founder and managing director of HW News Network, Sujit Nair. Hi, Sujit.
Hi, Abhinandan. Hi, all.
Sujit is, as you know, his journalists were recently arrested in Tripura while they were reporting on the communal problem there and the skirmishes that happened. We shall get into some more details about that case. And also joining us on the phone line is Sandhya Ravishankar. Hi, Sandhya.
Hi, Abhinandan.
Sandhya is based out of Chennai in Tamil Nadu. She was the former editor at The Lead. She's the recipient of the Ramnath Goenka Excellence in Journalism Award in the Environmental Reporting category in 2019. She did a series on the expose of the illegal beach and sand mining in Tamil Nadu. And she can tell us about the flooding again that Tamil Nadu is facing. And apparently, even as we speak, some more alerts have been given out, and maybe she can tell us a little about that. And joining us on the phone line is Raman, sir. Hi, Raman.
Hi.
You guys know Raman, our managing editor. And in the studio with me is Manisha Pande.
Hello.
And I'm Abhinandan Sekhri. Before we get into the discussion, let's get the headlines from Manisha.
Two HW News journalists were first detained and then arrested in Assam for reporting on communal violence in Tripura. Our reporter Ayush was also present there, so you can read our detailed reports on these arrests and his ground reports from Tripura on the communal violence. The two journalists have been granted bail by the CGM court in Gomti district of Tripura. The police questioned these journalists till late on Tuesday evening. Tripura minister, meanwhile, has criticized them for being quote-unquote agents of political party. The state of Tamil Nadu and Kerala are groping in the dark over the quantity of water that is leaking from the Mullaperiyar Dam. Before Chennai residents could fully recover from the recent floods, another low pressure is likely to head towards North Tamil Nadu. This weather system is expected to bring heavy rains to very heavy rains to the region between November 17th and 19th. We're already getting videos and images from there of intense rain. Yeah. Meanwhile, Bangalore also had a lot of rain over this week. There's been a 5 centimeter rainfall recorded on Monday, and there's a yellow alert. Comic Veer Das's viral monologue at Washington's Kennedy Center has been, it's gone viral and has been furiously debated on primetime debates.
Yeah.
Apart from social media, it's also a huge
on a week
news
when
issue.
We were hoping it would be.
And it's provoked a police complaint in Delhi by a BJP leader, Aditya Jha, for vilifying the nation on foreign soil. Naak kata di. Salman Khurshid's home was vandalized, set on fire after controversy over his book on Ayodhya, where he's compared Hindutva to ISIS and Boko Haram. Attacks on Salman Khurshid's house. Some suspects have been identified. Raids have been intensified to arrest them. This was in Nainital. I never thought Nainital would come in news for something like this. Former Maharashtra Minister Anil Bonde arrested for inciting violence in Amravati. Around 6,000 party members, along with allied organizations like Bajrang Dal, Vishwa Hindu Parishad, had taken to the streets to enforce the Bandh on Saturday. The Bandh was called to protest the march carried out by Muslim groups in Amravati a day earlier against anti-minority violence in Tripura. 2 shops belonging to a minority community and 4 vehicles were torched. A curfew was imposed on Saturday, continued through Monday, but was eased for a few hours to buy essentials. Internet services remain disconnected, as is the case in all such cases. The first thing to do is snap off internet. On Monday, during the Supreme Court's hearing on pollution in Delhi, the centre informed that stubble burning contributed only 10% to the pollution.
The lawyer of the centre informed the Supreme Court.
Delhi has meanwhile called for a shutdown on industry, construction on bans, and also schools because of air pollution. Yogi Adityanath, UP Chief Minister, had directed officials to encourage people to use public transport instead of private vehicles. Farmers have also been told not to burn stubble. Mumbai AQI meanwhile rose and it was more than Delhi on Monday, according to some headlines that I read, but there's been rain, so that should bring some relief. Haryana has shut down 4 NCR districts, imposes other restrictions. Haryana government is also going to go with the odd even rule in some districts next week, even though this apparently never worked. So we don't know why he's doing this. Punjab Chief Minister Charanjit Singh Channi on Thursday also said that all cases related to stubble burning will be quashed, but he's urged farmers not to burn the stubble because it causes pollution. Modi, meanwhile, inaugurated the 341-kilometer long Purvanchal Expressway. A lot of excitement around that because he...
Expressway.
Oh, what did I say? Expressway.
X-ray.
I said X-ray. Oh, sorry. He landed on a Air Force C-130 Hercules plane and that got news anchors very excited. It was almost covered as if koi war karke aa gaye hain, Pradhan Mantri Modi ji. War on drugs and weapons led to killing of commanding officer Jawans in Manipur ambush. This was a very deadly ambush where not only an army officer but his son and wife also died.
Yeah, it's quite horrible.
Yeah, and rare to hear of such cases from there. First arrests were made in Manipur after ambush that left the colonel, his wife and son dead. The Supreme Court sets aside Bombay High Court verdict, says skin-to-skin contact not needed for sexual assault under POCSO Act.
Because that was a ridiculous kind of judgment that had come earlier.
ISA, ABVP students clash in JNU, several injured. We have a report on it, you can read it. In Gujarat, heroin worth 600 crores seized in Morbi, 3 arrested.
अब भाई ड्राई स्टेट रखोगे तो ऐसे ही होगा.
I think
Congress-
Bihar is also reviewing.
Yeah, they're reviewing the whole thing. There was that those deaths because of
Those
the
terrible
terrible
deaths that
because
happened
of country made.
because of country-made alcohol. Congress to go solo in UP polls, contest all 403 seats. That's Priyanka Gandhi. She's also been doing some temple runs. I saw pictures of her with like tika and all that. There's Gujarat making news because they don't want non-vegetarian food and eggs on the main road and near schools. Kashmir has been in headlines once again. 2 militants and 1 civilian was killed in an encounter in J&K. The family of the civilian has been protesting last night. They were evicted from the protest site. They are claiming that the person who died was used as a human shield. The police, of course, says that he was harboring terrorists in his building and he knew about it and he didn't inform the police. Painful to see civilians being killed during operations against militants, says Mehbooba Mufti. Modi government reopens Kartarpur corridor for pilgrims. Navjot Singh Sidhu says he was denied clearance for the Pakistan Kartarpur event.
While Channi has gone, so clearly things are not all good in Congress.
No, but I think the clearance comes from the center. Na?
Yeah, but
From the
since they
Ministry
gave
of External Affairs.
since they gave Channi clearance and he didn't get, he'll probably say Channi को क्यों दे
But
दी
कांग्रेस
clearance
का
मुझे
क्या
क्यों नहीं
फायदा, बीजेपी का क्या फायदा कि चन्नी को जाने दिया और उस सिद्धू को नहीं?
मिला? ताकि अब सिद्धू सड़ेगा.
They're playing against each other. Na?
And predictably Sidhu will sado. But
ताकि कांग्रेस में फूट आए.
But we don't have that much information right now. But Raman sir, you were saying that in Kashmir, those alleged militants or whoever who was killed, their body weren't being given back to the family, and the family sat on protest, and then they were removed. What specifically is that? I mean,
Basically, they are saying that they were not terrorists. First of all, they were not terrorists, and the police, it was completely a mistaken identity, and the police have killed them. So now the police chief is also saying that if there's something wrong, we will inquire into it. Now he has also softened his stand. So they were asking for the body to be given, and apparently there's one story in which has come from Jammu from my colleague in the Indian Express, previous colleague. It's a telling story. I mean, one of the person who got killed was his father was awarded by the government
For counterinsurgency. So the police has said that the dead include 2 militants. One is this Amir Magre, he's from Gul, and there's a Pakistani apparently who's called Bilal Bhai, and the 2 overground workers are Altaf Bhatt and the tenant Mudassir Gul. So that's what they've said, and they're saying that they're looking into what's happening. But the overground workers, one of the overground workers' father said that I have worked against counterinsurgency. I had to leave Srinagar because I helped the forces with this. So why would my son?
And
get
going
into
by the
this?
reports, the police have also softened their stand. So I think they are going to look into the entire incident.
And the dead bodies of the 2 civilians are not being handed over for the last rites. So that is a big
the
point of
families
anger.
are sitting and then they removed the
one
families.
of the family
forcibly.
members is a journalist, and she's the one who tweeted out that you used him as a human shield.
So we have a new Sena project which is half covered. We'd like you to chip in and cover the other half. It's a documentary that we want to do on Hathras. It was a story that our team reported on diligently and extremely well, I might add. Our reports were quoted by international media as well. And it's been a year, and there's a pot of ashes that are sitting there in the corner of a wardrobe in Hathras. Those are the ashes of Asha, the Dalit lady who was gang raped in UP's Hathras. This happened in September last year. She died and her body was forcibly cremated, if you remember those horrific visuals. When the incident took place, there was much outrage. We were the first to actually start covering that, but there was a lot of coverage. But the victim's family still lives under the full-time protection, and the trial is happening in the case. And until justice is served, the family says they will not conduct the last rites of their daughter. So the story is not just of the brutality of what happened to her. It's about what happens to a Dalit family when they're abandoned by the news cycle. And our new project, which Nidhi Suresh, who was covering that, and Parikshit Sanyal, our producer, they will be pursuing this as a documentary film. And we want to really tell this story as it deserves to be told, in depth, in detail, as a long-form documentary film. So you can go on to our website, or you can click on the link below, and you can just chip in on this Sena project so we can do a really, really compelling, well-made documentary film, which you can actually send all across the world to festivals so that it can get the kind of coverage. And there have been a couple of Indian documentaries that actually got that kind of coverage internationally. And the last one was An Insignificant Man. It was on Arvind Kejriwal. While that won a lot of international, acclaim, I do believe that this story is an important one that needs to be told because it tells us a lot about the status of a particular caste. It's on gender. It's on law enforcement. It's on law and order. It covers so many things about India, which is why it's a really special story, which we'd like to do a much deeper dive on. So all those people are stuck with it, and because it is a beach town, so it's not like you can, even if you put something that goes, underwater into the beach, the ocean pressure will push it back upwards. So there's no solution. Is that what we're saying? That Chennai is stuck with this?
Well, the solution is actually to improve the drainage system because, despite all of this construction on lakes and ponds and wetlands, Chennai has an excellent drainage system. So we have 3 rivers that run through the city, and these rivers carry all of the flood water, rainwater into the sea. So, and apart from that, we also have this wonderful canal built by the British. It's called the Buckingham Canal. And this canal cuts right across the city and drains all of the flood waters into the Bay of Bengal. Now, the problem right now, why it's flooding every year and why this particular flood was really bad, has a lot to do with your underground stormwater drainage system. Now, a large part of Chennai has underground stormwater drains, but there's also the periphery areas where it's all open, and these drains are not connected to each other in many places, and these drains are also of different sizes and shapes. So at the end of the day, you have a lot of points in the city where the stormwater drains, they empty out the rainwater, the flood water onto the streets and into homes, and there's really no place for the water to go. So a lot of infrastructure which needs to be built, or rather rebuilt, and let's hope that at least this year the authorities will start to do this.
So you see, Bombay, we normally keep 2 days off. It's actually very natural to us. We normally keep 2 days off because 2 days is bound to rain, 2 days is bound to get flooded. 2 days Bombay is underwater. So that's something that's now we are used to it. See, Abhinandan, the problem here is, somewhere down the line, environmental consciousness is something that you can't just overnight build. You can't just go out and say that kal se AQI kharab hai, to therefore you start behaving yourself, don't burn stubble, don't do that, don't do this and all that. It doesn't work that way. It's a behavioral change that one needs to get. And that behavioral change never happens because we get into the environmental discussion only during October to December or possibly January. That's it. After that, we forget about environment. So that's the problem. I guess there has to be a certain amount of consciousness. There has to be a certain amount of behavioral change that has to be brought about. And that, I think, is not happening, which is the primary problem. I mean, how many of us are actually environmentally conscious? How many of us are bothered about the carbon footprints? How many of us are bothered about taking cars to office or using a private or using a public transport? ये सब जो है ना, it's good, as far as discussions are concerned, but practically nobody bothers. It's the same thing about, it can never happen to us. It happens to the neighbors,
But yeah,
so,
institutionally, I think what was distressing, at least this week, and Raman and Manisha can come in, was that in the Supreme Court, when the Supreme Court was hearing the stuff about AQI in Delhi, the centers, quoted some reports saying that only 10% is contributed by stubble burning. And in fact, before that, some report was quoted as saying 4%. Now, what they mean is over the whole year, but during this peak time, it's way more than that. Because, when odd even happened, I remember once saw a lot of coverage in news saying that vehicular pollution is not even like 5%. How will odd even help? Okay, so then let's not do odd even. There was all these reasons that are against odd even by many news organizations. But news organizations ran this whole 10% thing without checking. In fact, the lawyer for the Delhi state government said that he'll, ask the Supreme Court to try the center for perjury because that is incorrect. But if institutions themselves don't want to give the correct figures, I mean, I don't see how we can expect any change because, I mean, while I get what you're saying, Sujit, but at an individual level, it's always going to be hard. It is the institution that, I mean, it's like, just like saying we should all stop committing crimes, but it is the institution's job to make sure that there's a system in place which prevents crime. So similarly, I think when the institutions fail us and give this
Abhinandan, I completely
dodgy
agree
data.
to you. When I talk about consciousness, creating a behavioral change, I'm talking about institution trying to create that behavioral change. What I meant is institution trying to create that behavioral change. Individuals can never bring about a mass change. It has to be an institution. I completely agree to you.
The politicians do not want to touch farmers.
Yeah, it's too big a vote bank.
That is why they are giving the wrong figures. I mean, especially the center, and for that matter, even Punjab government and the Haryana government, they don't want to touch farmers. That's
why in this headline, Mr. Channi, the Chief Minister of Punjab, has removed all the FIRs and cases against farmers for stubble burning from last year, and at least he's urged them not to burn. But if here the paddy crop is burnt, what happens in the south, Sandhya? How come this problem isn't there? They don't burn the crop stubble there?
No, we don't have stubble burning here, Abhinandan. But pollution is largely from the vehicles here. And not much is really being done because it's not at the level of Delhi or Haryana, considering the fact that we're a coastal city. So thanks to the sea, we're in a slightly better position.
So maybe I should ask some farmers, but I'm just wondering, what do they do with the stubble there? They can't be like uprooting it. That would be too time consuming and expensive.
Our reporter, our reporter is on the ground. See, remember Kejriwal had come up with some solution, some chemicals.
Yeah, which they basically
he sprinkled. But we went to the ground and we saw over there whatever experiments that AAP had done with those chemicals. It is really difficult to remove those stubble now. Okay, the experiment is unsuccessful, and what the villagers are doing now, they say they don't burn it anymore because there are ancillary industries like poultry and there's some other industries. So the mushroom growers, they are buying away all the stubbles. There is mushroom grower. We have him on record on video. He says he's ready to buy. He needs so many stubbles, and he's ready to buy. He is ready to pay 20,000 rupees per acre.
Exactly, that's how it happened. They were moving towards Assam. They were trying to take an early flight out of Assam and come back to Delhi because they were scared, and they were caught in they were detained in Assam, and then they were brought back at around 12:31 in the night to Tripura. And an FIR was registered. FIR was registered earlier on, actually. The same day we went for bail. We got the bail, but the bail, as per the bail agreement, they have to report to the police station on the 19th, and they have another call on the 21st, if I'm not mistaken. So they have to report to the police station, and then they have to be there whenever the police calls them. So that's the arrangement.
But after the 21st, can we safely assume that they can come back to Delhi or Bombay and go whenever they're required to?
I want to believe that is how it is going to be. As on now, that is the condition, and they have to be there once a month. According to the
and what was the complaint that was filed against them? And I believe before they were actually taken into custody, the police had come and camped out at the lobby of their hotel, which was a little intimidating.
Yes, there were around 15 to 16 policemen who had come to their lobby. They were camped out, and morning they were handed over the FIR. Then they were allowed to leave, and once they left the place, that is when they decided to go to Assam instead of going to Agratala, and that is where they were caught in Assam and brought back to Agratala, brought back to Gomati, and now the Gomati police interrogated them day before yesterday.
And as a managing editor, when your reporters go out to report here, what kind of quandary does that leave you in? And Raman sir, if you could come in after that, because some of your reporters have also, or our reporters have also been, often intimidated. So, do you worry about, having to answer to their parents because they're so young? Do you feel concern about sending reporters to faraway places and not just within Maharashtra? And at the risk of sounding sexist, but I know this is something that crosses the mind of any news organization person in charge. Do you feel reluctant to send ladies into very high-risk areas only because you may be kind of questioned that why did you put someone in harm's way? I mean, are these things, do these cross your mind in any way?
Yes to all the three, Abhinandan. Yes to all the three, because first of all, they're young kids. I've got a kid at home, so it's for me. It's more than anything.
Your child was around the same age, correct? Right?
Absolutely. That's one. I mean, getting them home was my priority. Nothing else. I was not bothered about anything else. I just wanted them home. Number one. Number two is, yes, I am now very, very scared sending my my journalist outside of at least the states where I have some kind of a control. At least there are flights in and out and so on and so forth. And finally, yes, I will be much more cautious sending girl children to any of these places which are sensitive. But this, on the third count, you see, I wasn't there in office, but my colleagues had taken enough precaution to ensure that there were no, there was no untoward incident in the last 10 days. There was nothing going wrong. We checked with people there. We found out from people there. We found out from your teammates there. So we did our background check, and that is when these two girls went there. So that part, we in our minds, we were sending them to a place where there would be nothing wrong.
But Sandhya, as being a founder and a woman founder of a news organization, I know I had this conversation with Dhanya a few years ago when that temple where women aren't allowed, which went to the Supreme Court, what's it? Sabrimala. So there, because her reporters had gone there and they were, physically jostled because A, they were pissed off that this matter has gone to the court. B, they were pissed off that how are women coming and covering this, because the Supreme Court has said they're allowed. So the next time when she wanted to send someone, she says, as a woman journalist, I don't want to be discriminated against because that used to piss me off. But as a founder, you're in two minds. A, you don't want to, buckle under the pressure of those hoods there, that I will send a guy to cover this because you roughed up. But at the same time, because of the nature of the Sabrimala agitation, the nature of the protests, the nature of the entire situation, you're always second guessing what is, should I take a position that is ideological? Should I be prudent? How do you negotiate that, Sandhya?
Well, I like to think I'm a little practical. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I would certainly err on the side of caution. I don't think I would have sent women journalists to cover Sabrimala at all, because it's just not worth them going through that trauma of being attacked or whatever. But yes, if it also, I think, depends on the temperament of the woman reporter, right? If it's someone who's there are different types of reporters, male and female. Some of them are very strong, some of them are capable of handling situations, some of them are just not. So I guess for me, I would look at the temperament of the reporter. And if it's somebody very young, I would probably not send them out to very difficult locations, because it's just not worth all the heartache and the agony that comes with it. But maybe that's just me being overcautious. But I don't know.
I know when I was in my early 20s and I was a reporter here at Newstrack, in some of the places where we went to, I guess a lot of things have changed since then. I'm talking in the mid 90s. And there was this one fire at, there used to be a slum which is called the Yamuna Pushta slum. It doesn't exist anymore, right, sir? Yamuna Pushta, that entire slum was removed, right?
Yeah, no, I think it is still there in parts.
But it's not as big as it used to be. It was like enormous.
Yes.
It like covered the entire Yamuna bank, and there used to be every now and then a fire there. And I remember in that fire, some of my friends and colleagues had gone to cover it, and when everyone came running out, the women were poured. It was just really traumatic. But they would go and report. We'd discuss it, but it was not a thing. I guess there was no social media and there was no internet also. But, this sucks, or this is shitty, okay, fine. But tomorrow you'd get back on it. Now, I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing, but safety wasn't as big an issue back then. Even though there were some horrible incidents that happened, whether it was covering farmers' protests, whether it was covering these fires. I know many friends of mine have had to face like horrible situations. But when it comes to freedom of the press, Sandhya, I'm coming back to you. Jayalalitha, for many, all leaders are complicated, complex, many things to admire about her, many things to really call her out on. But when it came to cracking down on the press, she was as bad as they came. Yet somehow the South doesn't seem to have that reputation of there being an assault on the press, like, for example, UP does, or parts of Bihar do, or even Delhi does. Is it because you guys are relatively insulated? Because at least the cases that Jayalalitha's regime had filed on reporters, that doesn't seem the case. How would you rate things in south of the Vindhyas when it comes to reporters being able to do their jobs without intimidation?
You see, we sit and talk on our YouTube. It goes all over the world.
Yes.
This that Kolaveri D it's got what, 30, 35, 40, 50 crores of viewers all over the world. What is this about talking in foreign land? That's something that I never understood. Because you talk in any land today, it is as good as talking in an international platform. So that's number one. Number two is, why only certain narrative are always questioned? Somebody else says something about freedom fighters, and we got our freedom, and we can all, it's okay. So
yeah, but I think that is, and that equivalence was being struck. But coming back to Chetan, he said, I may fight or find many faults with my mother, but I won't go criticizing her in the neighbor's house. I may find 100 things wrong with my country, but I won't go criticize it in public or an international stage. Maybe it's just me, but some things are just not done. That is what Chetan Bhagat says.
Absolutely, no.
And आज तक headline was अभिव्यक्ति की आजादी क्या फायदा उठाया जा रहा है?
अभिव्यक्ति क्या फायदा उठाया जा रहा है? Are we taking undue advantage?
Our political scientists, our very well-known political scientists and sociologists have given a two India theory. Okay, the one which belongs to poor and the other which belongs to rich. And they have analyzed it so beautifully. And this guy, he, in his own way, in his comic way, he said the truth.
Yeah.
So what is wrong with it? You have no tolerance whatsoever.
But I just think that
So are there any equivalences in the global comedy space? Like Trevor Noah talks a lot about origins, but there's a certain pride in where he comes from, and he takes on the white supremacists or the Americans, or like the white world, basically, quote unquote. And there's a lot of pride about his roots, where he comes from, what he suffered. So is there an equivalence to what Veerdas has done, say, like in a global?
Of course, I mean, there is.
But I think maybe, yeah. I mean,
of course, there is. I mean, there are many aspects of this. I mean, the print had
Yeah, I
this piece
think-
of while Veerdas is Savarna, so he did not talk about caste, and he's been criticized for that this is a very convenient liberal position, which I see the merit of that argument, but I think it's being stretched a bit far. And maybe we should have Anurag discussing this on next hafta or the one after that. But I mean, I think one aspect is of him saying this, and the second aspect is not just being criticized, but people saying, because if liberals say this is okay, then they should say what Kangana said is also okay. And that is a problem I have, which is the equivalence that was being made by many channels, including I think the one you mentioned, India Today. It's not the same thing. I mean, the equivalence that I say, that is a donkey braying on the street and maybe Kishoriya Monkar or Pandit Bhimseng Joshi singing. I won't say both are making a sound, so it's the same. No, it's not. I'm not saying any of them should be arrested. But one I'm saying is a craft, it's a skill, it adds value to my life. The other is a donkey braying. But what these guys do is they draw an equivalence in the content. Freedom of speech, of course, should be there. She should not be arrested for what she said. And I think that Congress leader who said that arrest her and all. I mean,
and sedition cases.
Yeah,
and all
sedition
that.
cases, that's ridiculous. But that is a particular Congress leader.
I think even Shobha Day had a piece on NDTV today.
Saying?
We need both Kangana and Veer.
I'm not sure we
Which is-
need both,
I mean-
but this foolish equivalence I find a little problematic.
You know,
Raman
what is most tiring in this argument is that we always are debating the most common denominator, common denominator thing.
dumbest
Yeah,
of them.
obviously none of them should go to jail, but our conversation
Not the
starts
discussion.
and ends there.
Yeah,
That's it.
that should not be the discussion. That should be a done deal,
Of
and we
course,
should move beyond.
none of them should go to jail, and within that there's space for Veerdas's critique. Like one critique that you talked about, Anurag offering. I personally found some of his equivalences really like college level. You know, the whole gang rape thing. I think I've heard that like 10 years ago, that we pray worship to women goddesses, but we rape them. I mean, that's a very cliched thing. And we don't care about sexuality and we fuck to a billion. I think that's also very cliched. It's very reductive to me, like understanding population and codes and mores. And I mean, to me, it's a very college level argument or statement. So when people, I mean, before the right wing backlash against it came the huge praise for Veerdas, and that's where I thought, okay, I must watch what has he done. And I watched it and I was like, okay, it's fine. It's not like remarkably, I wasn't blown away with his insights into the India of today.
Before we move on, can I just request you to subscribe and pay to keep news free? We have seen a spurt in those of you whose automatic, that recurring payment had dropped off. Many of you have come back and resubscribed. We're still not up to the levels we were pre this whole RBI mandate, but do subscribe and pay to keep news free. And those of you who mailed me who want to do a 3-year subscription together, for which you'll get goodies and that book signed by Manisha, Atul, Raman sir and me. Thank you. We got your emails. Your goodies are on the way. And you will get your free stuff in addition to helping journalism thrive and survive. Thank you so much.
All the News Laundry podcasts are available on Stitcher, iTunes, and any other podcast platform.
Please subscribe to News Laundry. Help us keep news independent. To catch all our podcasts on news, pop culture, current affairs, and sport, visit newslaundry.com. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. सुन लिया अफ्रीका मुफत खोरों? Not to brag or anything, but News Laundry Hafta features in the top 50 in the world on SoundCloud in the news and politics category for podcasts. So do subscribe and see what you're missing, because when the public pays, the public is served. When advertisers pay, advertisers are served. Subscribe, help keep news independent and free. All News Laundry podcasts are available on iTunes and Stitcher and any other podcast platform.